Welcome into this edition of VU Sports Wired, Vanderbilt Video Productions' premier sports talk show. My name is Bobby Kent, a Vanderbilt Hustler senior staff writer, and I am your host. I am joined by Jonah Barbin, Hustler sports copy editor. On this week's show, we will discuss basketball's tough loss in the NIT quarterfinals last week, make sense of the recent transfers, and determine what Vanderbilt needs to do this offseason to continue to take a step forward. We will also talk about the red-hot, fourth-ranked Vandy boys who are winners of 8 straight following a sweep of Mississippi State in a midweek win over Lipscomb. For the last time this school year, we start with men's basketball, where Vanderbilt bowed out of the NIT with a disappointing 67-59 loss at the hands of UAB. The Commodores led at half by 3, but were outscored by 11 in the second half en route to the defeat. It was a poor shooting performance for both teams, but Vanderbilt only shot 33% to end an otherwise great season. Since the season has ended, the Commodores have seen 5 players enter the transfer portal, most notably among them Miles Stute, Trey Thomas, and Jordan Wright as a graduate transfer. So Jonah, a really unfortunate game, and quite frankly it hurts to even bring it up again, but what did you take away from it, and what are your thoughts from the season as a whole?
Yeah, Bobby. First of all, very tough way to end the season, like you said. It seems so poetic that finally the NIT game to send them to the big trip. Last year it was to the Garden, and this year it was to Vegas, right? They lost to Xavier on the road. Now Memorial Magic was in full swing. Fans packed the crowd, and now all the Commodores had to do was win that game to send them to Vegas. Couldn't get it done. UAB is a big team. They're a physical team, and with a shooting performance like the Commodores have that day, it just wasn't going to happen, unfortunately. Now, in terms of the greater question of how I view this season, it doesn't change my opinion. Stackhouse has gotten better every single year, right? Okay, so you look at it, technically the Commodores got eliminated at the same place this year. But we weren't talking about them for a potential NCAA tournament bid last season, right? Stackhouse has this team improving leaps and bounds by the year, and I'm excited to see what they'll do next year. Now, you do bring up all these transfers, and I think where Vanderbilt can really make their killing is through the transfer portal for people coming here, right? I think an NIT tournament victory would have been huge for transfers, but I think the Commodores have still made a pretty good pitch about what they're about, right?
Oh, 100%. I would completely agree with you. I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't want to come play at Vanderbilt right now. You know, if you're a small forward and you're looking at this roster, you're like, I could start right away, right? With Jordan Wright leaving. So, you know, this team, you could step in and definitely make an impact. I think it was a very disappointing way to end the season. But, you know, and especially with the momentum that they had, but I think you saw it at the Michigan game. The shooting was a little bit off, and then that unfortunately carried over. But UAB is a good team. I mean, they're in the finals now of the NIT. So, you know, in an all-conference USA final, which I don't think anybody would have predicted. But, you know, they're a good team, and you try to, you know, Jordan Walker starts out really slow, you know, in the first half, and then he turns it on. I mean, third leading scorer in the country. That you expect that to happen, right? And the fact that he didn't play well, but Vanderbilt only had a 3-point lead, I think, you know, you're kind of looking like, oh, shoot, this might turn around. And it did turn around for UAB and unfortunately, you know, for Vanderbilt. But, I mean, I was this year as a whole has been absolutely, you know, beyond anything that I expected for sure. And to get a last game at Memorial as a senior, I think was definitely, you know, worth it for me, and I think worth it for all the seniors as well. But what do you make, speaking of transfers, what do you make of the transfers out of the program? And what is your ideal sort of person Vanderbilt needs to bring in?
Yeah, it's tough to see some of the transfers. I think the Miles Stute transfer makes sense. It just was a tough season, especially against the SEC for him, and just not really a fit anymore. The Jordan Wright transfer hurts, but again, starts to make sense. Because remember, before the Liam Robbins injury, this was not the season that Jordan Wright had expected at all. Kind of salvaged it there at the end in that storyline, which is kind of a nice ending to this marriage, but I don't think it made sense for him to be here anymore.
I mean, yeah, he gave a good 4 years to the program, and, you know, right. True Vanderbilt man. Yeah.
Shelby doesn't really get on the floor, so he goes. Diaz gone. Tough. Sometimes
Trey
freshman
Thomas,
year doesn't work out, and right, Trey Thomas served his time here, right? So what I'm looking at in order, who's going to be the stars on this team next year? I think you got to look at Colin Smith. Mm-hmm. I think Colin Smith is going to step up big time. Already did in the NIT, but I think this guy is really going to take over next year. The pairing of Colin Smith and Paul Lewis, I'm really excited for, and I could see if Ezra Mannion stays, you could have that backcourt of Ezra and Paul Lewis, which I think could be extremely formidable. Paul Lewis developing in his second year, and Ezra just doing what he does. I mean, he was the reason the Commodores were going to make it to the NCAA tournament if they did, right? Amazing in the SEC tournament. And then Colin Smith as that strong, that really good shooting forward. I see a good kind of beginning there, but I think Vanderbilt has to address the big man, right? I love QMB. Lee Dort brings stuff to the table, but I think you need more there, and you saw that in these big games.
No, I 100% agree with you. I think if they could get another big man to bring that back of shades of Liam Robbins, that would be huge. I know they've reached out to a bunch of guys in the portal already, as a lot of other teams have too, but and then to potentially get that guy could as well be a fourth scorer and sort of to complement. I think for having 4 guys on the floor that could potentially go off for 15-20 a night would just be absolutely amazing, and this team could really, really make more damage going forward. But I think this program is in the right spot. I think Jerry Stackhouse, and especially with the rise of NIL, they're going to continue to use that as a pushing point. Tyron, I think, will come back, even though he's entered the NBA draft situation, just to sort of get a test of his worth, and he'll come back, and then this will be, I think, a strong team next year. So I think that about concludes our wrap-up of basketball this year. And let's turn to baseball, where the 4th-ranked Vandy boys completed another impressive sweep this past weekend, this time of the other Mississippi team, the Bulldogs. Winners of 8 straight now, thanks to the midweek win on Tuesday. This team is on a serious roll. In the series against Mississippi State, they won, get this, Jonah, 26-3 in Game 1. Yes, 26-3! And 18-5 in Game 2. I thought the Bulldogs were going to throw in the towel for Game 3, but Vanderbilt only won 11-7. So, Jonah, tell me your impressions of the weekend. Just what a masterful performance all around.
Well, we were talking about, Bobby, this team looks pretty dangerous. When are the bats waking up? And, oh, man, the bats have woken up in these past couple of weeks. And the fact that you have Ole Miss and Mississippi State, 2 very recent national champions, and Vanderbilt just took them both to the doghouse. That was fantastic to see. So many contributors on the offensive side. It's tough to even point people out, but RJ Schreck, Duke transfer, has looked unreal at the plate. What an addition for this team. And, you saw what the guy did at Duke, and when I saw that he was coming here and part of the roster, I was like, wow, that could really push this team over the top, right? A team that last year always felt like it was clawing towards the top but never quite got there. Corbs has this team on a different mission right now, Bobby.
Oh, 100%. To score 55 runs in a weekend, they're not going to match that again this weekend. That would be great if they could this year, but 55 is incredible. They broke multiple offensive records, most runs in a road contest. Parker Nolan went off. Vanderbilt's single game RBI record with 11 driven in the first game of the series, 2 grand slams. He's the 5th player in SEC history to hit 2 grand slams in one game. He was also named the SEC Co-Player of the Week, which I don't even know how the SEC thought that that's worthy of a co. That should be the Player of the Week. He hit over 500, 3 home runs, 14 RBIs to the series. You mentioned Schreck, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs. He had a monster series last weekend too. Absolutely fantastic. And Vanderbilt completing the sweep with 11-7 victory on Sunday, and Davis Diaz homering twice. This team has been firing on all cylinders. And to honestly, to hold them to a field goal, if you want to use football terms, in the first game was great. To hold them to a touchdown after putting up 11 in the last game is pretty good too. So this team is absolutely on fire. They face Georgia this weekend, which should be another series that they can get 2 wins at least out of. I'm really excited to watch that series. I think the pitching has been really strong as well. Corbin, I think, did a great job on Tuesday too, with Bryce Cunningham getting him in as the opener to sort of right his rough outing that he had against Mississippi State. I think this team is clicking on all cylinders, and it's really going to be exciting to see how they keep going. But they have a very big stretch coming up soon enough, but hopefully they can get some good wins out of Georgia and keep it moving. So, yeah, you have anything else to add, or you think that's good?
Yeah, the only other thing I would say about this team is like I said, they are on that mission, right? I'm seeing the makings of a national champion, right? When you look at the team in 14, when you look at the team in 19, you start to draw comparisons, right? And I'm seeing that. There's something in the water in Nashville this year. So Commodore fans, it's time to get excited and jump on the bandwagon early. Watch these regular season games, right? Don't wait till, regionals or whatever. Watch right now. Commodores are beating teams, and they're beating teams pretty good right now in the most grueling conference in college baseball. So now's the time to soak it up, Bobby.
Oh, 100%. I think you make a great plea there. Listen to his plea. He's very right. All right, and that'll do it for this week's edition of VU Sports Wired. thank you for watching. We'll be back next week to hopefully discuss more Vanderbilt baseball dominance.